Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and today we're going to be talking about issues that are very pertinent to our society, especially in the times that we live in. We're going to talk about Pragati, which is a CSR initiative of Meta, powered by the Nudge Center for Social Innovation to incubate and accelerate early stage women led nonprofits that are working in the areas of women entrepreneurship and to drive awareness and adoption of technology among women, specifically in India. The most promising solutions selected as part of Pragati are awarded with number one, funding up to rupees 50 lakhs. Of course, that is based on the stage of the organization and completion of their set milestones. Number two, dedicated mentoring and strategic advice from a collective of experts and CSI partners. Number three, a community of exceptional leaders that get access to an ecosystem of unlimited support. Well, we'll also talk about Esther today, an important facet of our conversation. Well, Esther, by definition, enables ambitious women college students who come from tier 2 and tier 3 towns to realize their aspirations, no less, of entering the workforce after graduation. As part of the Esther Fellowship, students are part of an immersive 5-month virtual program that enables them to be on an accelerated trajectory to be workforce ready and streamline their job discovery process. The program has 4 milestones that the students will progress through. They build identity and agency, career readiness, mentorship with women in the workforce, and on-the-job experience as well. In 2021, Esther completed 3 pilots with 200 plus students in Madurai and Tirunelveli, Tamil Nadu. In 2022, Esther is now launching the first fellowship cohort in 2022 and has received applications from 1,000 plus students from Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and much more. And about the Foundation for Mother and Child Health India, which is also FMCH. Well, FMCH works with the families in the first 1,000 days of a child's life to give access to contextual, timely, actionable information and support, helping make the right nutritional choices for healthy mothers and children, reducing malnutrition, and breaking the cycle of poverty. There are 3 main interventions that enable us to provide access in the first 1,000 days. Group education, one-on-one counseling, and system support. FMCH has reached over 5 lakh families since the inception stage and 15,000 families in 2021 alone. That is something that calls for celebration as well. Now it's time for the big moment. I'm going to be introducing our guest for today. Akshay Soni is joining us on this important conversation. Akshay has 18 years of experience in the capital markets focused on equity analysis across various sectors. Could be IT services, cement, hotel, shipping, construction, infrastructure, capital goods, and the list goes on, along with thematic research to shape industry thought process. Akshay was in the past executive director at Morgan Stanley. Akshay holds an MBA from Excel RI Jamshedpur. Madhu Singh Sirohi is also joining us on this conversation. Welcome, Madhu. She's the head of policy programs and outreach India at Meta. She's leading Meta's program portfolio in India, including economic growth initiatives, women's economic growth initiatives, and women's economic empowerment, online safety, security, privacy, social good, disaster preparedness, and driving social value through the utility of its platforms as well. Shruti Iyer is also with us. She's the CEO and founder of FMCH. Welcome, Shruti. 10 years of experience in this sector. Prior to FMCH, she has consulted with various organizations, including Infosys, Hippocampus, Mentor Me India, and Teach for Bangladesh, Masoom, and Sukhi Bhava. Last but by no means the least, Agneta Venkatraman, co-founder of Esther. Agneta, a Stanford business graduate, co-founded Esther after business development and growth at Noura Health as a DRK fellow, prior to which she worked at the Gates Foundation, Shell, and volunteered extensively in the anti-trafficking space as well. Welcome, everyone, and it's good to see smiling faces at the beginning of this conversation. In fact, this is about women empowerment, so we're going to start asking questions from women. Sorry about that, Akshay. Madhu, I'm going to come to you first. Let's talk about the workspace that you have chosen and why women. Why did you choose women to work with? What are your reasons?
Yeah, thanks so much. Meta's vision and mission is to build people, give people the power to build community and to bring the world together. Now, how do we get the world together? A very important part of it is 50% of the world, which is women, and therefore gender equality is extremely important in connecting these dots. In India, only about 35% women have access to internet. Even then, it's partial. Some are reaching out to their family, reaching out through their family phones. There is a great need to build that capacity in women. And when we examine the gender gap, we largely see that there are three main gaps that come forth. One is their access to technology itself, which could be because of economics or because of other imperatives, that's hardware, infrastructure, etc. Second is the basic know-how. So many of them are not digitally literate enough to understand how to navigate this space. And lastly is their safety. Those who are on the platform want to be able to use this safe space very safely as users. Seeing this entire landscape, Meta was very clear that this is an area, this is a demographic, this is a group of people we do want to sort of invest in, and we are deeply committed to equity on our platforms. The second area where Meta has had a huge contribution is small businesses. There are about 180 million small businesses on Meta platforms across the world. In India itself, we see there are about 65 million small and medium micro enterprises exist, and of these, about 25% are owned by women, and these are offline. So when these two factors came together, the need for equity and the fact that small businesses are something we can help, that's when we felt that there was a very good fit for us to go ahead and support women-led enterprises. And Pragati was born in 2020, along with, of course, a great partnership with all the CSOs who come together to build this ecosystem and the Nudge Foundation.
Right, absolutely. Shruti, on to you now. There are a slew of problems that women have in the world today. If you start to count them, it's going to take you a whole lot of time to figure them out. Tell us about the focus that drove you, to do what you're doing right now.
Thanks, Amit, for the question. So, I think very similar to what Madhu said, right? Obviously, you read a whole lot of statistics on why gender equity is important, but for me, it's also very personal because being a woman, I think it's an identity that I relate very close to, and therefore, I think all women, and I could safely say this, face discrimination in various ways, and so the work becomes very personal for me. Why I choose to work especially in the first 1,000 days, is because the first 1,000 days is from the time the person is pregnant to the time the child is about 2. And in this time, there are various changes that go through a woman's body, including childbirth and lactation, etc., etc. It is imperative that she gets support in this time. She's also most vulnerable in this time. And how do we then create ecosystems of support for mothers during this period so that she's healthy and the child is healthy? That's essentially why I choose to work here, to bridge that gap of support, to empower women during the first 1,000 days, to make sure that maternal and child health is no longer a problem for the country.
Right, absolutely. Agneta, coming to you now. You obviously are working towards empowering women, helping them, earn a living, get good jobs, and be basically employment ready. But how did you come about the realization that this is an actual problem and it needs disruption, it needs intervention?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. I actually spent many years working long before I even transitioned to go to business school and start working in the development sector space. I had been volunteering a lot with the anti-human trafficking space, both labor trafficking and sex trafficking, all the way from advocacy and working with the government, all the way to, going to brothels and working with the police and rescuing women and talking to them then and there, making sure they're safe. And I realized that women, if trafficking exists today, it really comes down to poverty and women not having independence, financial independence, and agency. So either even if they leave or even if they come into it, it all comes down to money. Like money kind of is a big issue. Like I don't have the money, or I cannot have access to money, or I don't have choice to spend the money the way I wanted to. And so for me, I think I had this huge realization of saying, we can keep solving all of this downstream, but we really need to go to upstream. It has to come, and especially the most vulnerable areas. So that's why we're focusing on tier 2 and tier 3 areas and not working in cities. We really need to be able to say, okay, these women are bright, they're talented. At some point, like, they're not dumb to be able to be trafficked. It's just that they don't have the opportunities they need to not be vulnerable and not be exploited. And so that was what led me to start saying, okay, where is an age group I can sort of, intervene at, right? Like, being a child, it's too early. And, if women are past a certain age and they're married, that's too late. So what is a sweet spot where we can intervene? Women are transitioning from being under their parental control, being under systems that they cannot have influence on, to being able to say, okay, I finished college, I am now able to get a job, and transitioning to getting independence and agency, and getting more women to be able to join the workforce, more women to have a career, to have independence in how they earn their money and how they spend their money, is where we are right now. And so that's what led us to kind of landing on this age group and this problem of women not entering the workforce.
Agneta, we are going to continue to focus on what Esther is doing. You've given us a holistic vision. You've given us basically a macro perspective or a narrative of what you do, but also educate the audience as to what is being done right now. What are the priorities that you are engaged in right now?
Yes. So I guess a little more macro right now, we're seeing that only 20% of women are joining the workforce in India compared to 76% of men. So 1 in 5 women are working. And so even though our GDP is growing, we are like falling behind because of the economic opportunity of women not joining the workforce. And if women could join the workforce, we could see an increase of our economy by $700 billion if we kind of start matching the global average of what's happening in other countries surrounding us and around the world. So that's sort of like where we're at. Like, we have a long way to go for women to enter the workforce at proportional rates. What we are doing right now, what we're seeing, what is working for us, is that women are going to school now. There is a push in India system to go finish school, go to college, but once they get there, they don't know what to do, which is where we come in. So what we're doing we have 4 pillars of our program, and where we are kind of intersecting and intervening with them is that transition in their final year. So helping them saying, okay, how do you start thinking about yourself? Like, what is your role in society? How do you view your purpose? How do you view your life beyond your village, your hometown? And then we work on giving them mentors. So like women who speak their native language, who also have kind of had a similar journey, who have joined the workforce and want to contribute, and work with them. And then we really focus on all the hard skills, like how do you get a resume? How do you use your phone to start looking for jobs? How do you create your LinkedIn? And then we bridge them with opportunities and kind of give them on-the-job experience. So that's what we're doing right now. We've worked with around 200 women last year in Madurai and Tirunelveli. So we work very closely with a small pilot. We did 3 batches. We learned a lot. And now we've opened our batch to 4 states.
Agneta, from what I know and what little I have read about Esther, you're also working elaborately with girls and women from tier 2 and tier 3 areas. What was the specific problem over there, and what are you looking to change?
Yeah, so we are looking at basically people who are coming online for the first time. So with COVID-19, a huge advantage for the work we're doing at Esther, and we started doing a lot of traveling and calls before we even started registering the company to talk to all these girls and understand where they're at. And what happened with COVID-19, we realized, was there was this incredible opportunity to reach women through their phones, like women who have, like in a classroom, if previously only 1 girl had access to a phone, now every single classroom we visit, every single person has a smartphone, and thanks to Meta, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on WhatsApp. And so suddenly you have this thousands of women coming online for the first time, having access to exactly all of us on what all of us on this call have. So what we're working with and what we're doing right now is to say, okay, these women are coming online. What they're doing with their phones, they're not sure what to do. They don't know how to use it. So we're kind of bridging the digital inequity. So being able to teach them, hey, this is how you use your phone. Here's how you search for jobs. And we're really excited about that. We're really excited about the opportunity that that it brings for us. Okay.
All right. On to, a very bureaucratic question for you, Agneta. What's your vision, and what is Esther's vision for the next 5 years? Elaborate on that.
Yeah. So honestly, we are right now working tier 2, tier 3 areas, but we really want to work in the tier 4 areas. We really want to reach the last mile in the next 5 years. In order for us to do that, we need to do what we're doing now really well, learn from them. Like, their behaviors are very different from our behaviors. How we use a phone is different from how they use their phone. And Madhu covered that a little bit in her intro about like behaviors and safety, making sure they feel safe. So our vision is that eventually that every young Indian woman has an active voice and choices related to their aspirations. So not just a woman who's in the city from a family of privilege who has working parents, but even a girl who's coming from a village and completing her school and completing her college. Like if she has an aspiration to join the workforce, we're going to help her make it happen. So that's our dream. In order to do that, there's two big things that we're working on. One is creating a platform. We're seeing that there's just this rise of women-centric communities, especially for women in the workforce or women who want to be entrepreneurs, like namely like Shiro, Sleep Club. We just see this like booming across India right now. And even in the US, there's Lean In, there's Sleep Club. There's Chief, like these two different big organizations where people are paying to enter these exclusive communities. So we want to start creating that for these women. So if you do get a phone, you want to join the workforce, we want Esther to be the first platform you join because you know you're going to get the mentors, you know you're going to get access to the jobs, and you know you're going to get the coaching to be ready. And the second piece that we want to do is, let's face it, India does not have enough jobs. So eventually, if we really want to have every young women, Indian women, join the workforce today, if we say like every college graduate is ready to join the workforce, I don't know if we have capacity to absorb it and if we will in the next few years. So we want to explore entrepreneurial pathways as well. And it might not be the way that we understand entrepreneurship in terms of like a sexy Silicon Valley startup, like what my classmates from Stanford are doing, but in terms of creating opportunities locally and what makes sense for products and services that are needs. I think this is where we, going to your question about it being bureaucratic, like just thinking about like there's systems that need to change. There's still people who need access to basic services. So how can we have these ambitious, talented, bright women be able to solve what's the need of the hour and meet the moment?
Right. I like the point that you put COVID-19 at advantage. Two words which could be oxymorons in the same sentence, and that's development. That's progress to me. Thank you for that. We are going to talk about the FMCH now, Shruti. Elaborate on your vision and your mission currently. Talk about the first 1,000 days that we touched upon in the opening monologue as well. Also talk about the causes of malnutrition specifically in the urban poor.
Sure. Thanks, Vineet. Like I said, the first 1,000 days is from the time the person is pregnant to the time the child is about 2 years. It's called as a golden period of life. Basically, in human life, there are two growth spurts that happen. One is in the first 1,000 days, and the second is during adolescence. If you miss out on this, an individual will not live to their full capacity because there'll be cognitive development will be reduced, emotional, physical development will be reduced. And so then you see, children who are undernourished in the first 1,000 days are usually undernourished because the mothers are undernourished when during pregnancy, right? And therefore, these children tend to fall sicker more often, and therefore they'll miss classes more and get poorer scores. There's enough data to show that children who are undernourished get up to 10 percentage points lesser in English and math as they grow up, and then earn up to 8 percentage points lesser as adults, which means you are taking a significant amount from the GDP. And it's called as a burden of malnutrition that India is currently facing. 40% of Indian children are undernourished today, right? And that's a staggering number. Urban poor, specifically, if we were to look at it, what are the causes of malnutrition in the urban poor? Urban poor mostly comprise of migrants from various states. And I speak specifically about cities like Bombay and Bangalore, because that's where we predominantly, and for Pune, that's where we predominantly work. We have a lot of migrants who come in from various other states. Because we work on malnutrition and we speak about food is so personal. So, when I have a migrant from, say, a UP, I have to speak about what's being cooked in their house and how the food that they have can become more nutritious. And somebody in the South needs completely different counseling, right? Because food is so personal. And that's one of the biggest challenges of nutrition and being able to make it it cannot be this one size fits all. The other issue is in the first 1,000 days, the period is very long. You're talking about 2.5 years. And it's not like a cohort, right? It's not like all children in 7th standard get the same kind of information. Every mother, every family is on a different journey. And therefore, how do you ensure that at every point in time, the mother needs very different information? The mother needs very different actions to be taken. For instance, in the first trimester, she needs to be told about go register yourself with the system, go to a hospital and get your ANC card. And the second trimester, focus on making sure you had your IFA tablets, etc., etc. And this then becomes very, very complicated. The other big piece about urban slums is just easy access to non-nutritive food. India has grown tremendously in the last few years, and therefore you will always find, there's this 5 rupees ka Lay's ka packet is this the most common snack that everyone's eaten. So instead of that, what would it look like to have, say, 2 bananas or 3 eggs? So those nutritional choices that that people make is what is also like a big cause of malnutrition. So these are some of the factors that really lead to malnutrition in urban slums.
Well, there are obviously challenges associated with asking people or telling people or advising people what to eat. That's a problem with the elite and the educated as well. How do you go about, telling the underprivileged people and specifically people in the rural areas as to what's good for them when it comes to it? Because most of these choices, Shruti, are perhaps based on their pocket, not on what they feel inside and how healthy they are.
No, 100%, Vineet. And I think I think again, malnutrition are divided. Like in my head, I like to imagine it in 2 ways, right? One is food insecurity, where there is just lack of food, and then there is B, just lack of information. I don't know what I should be eating because I have come from a different location. I don't have access to knowing where is it that I should go to get my take-home ration. I don't know who's the Anganwadi worker near me. Once I get my take-home ration, what can I cook with that? Because in my place, they would give me very different take-home ration, right? And so that is the gap that we aim to cover. And you're right, like behavior change around nutrition is hard, irrespective of which community it is that we work in. How we specifically work is we engage with the community very deeply. We realize that, again, malnutrition the burden should not just be on the woman. While the woman is the focus of malnutrition, how do we create enough support around the woman to make sure that she has enough agency to make the nutritional choices? Most times in Indian households, what happens, and I'm sure all of us will agree, the decision-making equity is not just with the woman. It's sometimes the mother-in-law, the husband, etc., various other people at home. And therefore, you need to work with everyone with the ecosystem. That's one way to bring about change. The other thing that and I think one of my realizations also has been, trust is a very, very important factor in bringing about behavior change. We empower women from the community. So we identify women who become our frontline workers. We train them on the basics of malnutrition. We don't give them specific recipes, right? Because they are from the same community. They then go back and tell us, you know what, these are some recipes we can try, which are, say, high in protein, high in iron, etc. And those become positive deviances within the community. So the community then becomes more accepting to some of these recipes. We sort of have a framework within which we adopt to various situations. And that then makes behavior change easy.
Right. But another challenge that I assume you must be facing is, how to represent communities that are under-resourced. They don't have access. How do you go about solving, this predicament?
Right. So in terms of access, like I said, right, we have seen that malnutrition, number one, definitely is one of the issues is not having enough resources. But while there are some communities which just do not have the knowledge about what choices to make. For instance, like again, I love to use this example, right? You'll find that there is so much of, and there's nothing wrong with these products, right? They're okay in moderation, like your chips and your biscuits, etc., the 5 rupees wala thing. It's not the issue of not having the money. It's just about those wrong choices that's being made. In that same amount, you could make different choices. At home, people do buy dal, but then how do you make the dal? Are you sprouting it for more proteins? What are the small things that you could do? What are superfoods that you could include in your diet, which can be low cost? Right. And I'm not discounting the fact that, yes, economic resources are an issue, but within the given economic means, are there things that we could do to solve for malnutrition at this point in time, and then break the larger cycle of poverty over the next couple of generations?
Should you also talk about, some of the reasons, some examples why you have been successful, so that other people can also learn and imitate, the model you've been able to, use and be successful with?
Right. Vineet, I think there are three things why I think we've been able to do what we've been able to do. One is definitely the focus on identifying women leaders from the community. So we don't do this ourselves. So we don't go in as experts into a community. We identify women leaders from the community who, if had been anywhere else, would have just been fabulous. So they're also my inspiration for doing what I do. They are put through a 1.5 month program on nutrition, on healthcare, etc. And they then go and bring about behavior change within the community. The community trusts them. They're from the same community that we work in, and they're fabulous. The second is, I think, the use of technology. We have developed an app called as a Nutri app, which helps these our frontline workers counsel mothers much more effectively. Like I said, the first 1,000 days is a very long period. How do we ensure consistent quality information goes out to the mothers? What do you do with all the data that comes? How do you make sure that the information that goes out to a mother is contextual? It is exactly what she needs. Are we seeing progress? How do we measure all of this? So we've developed an app that helps us do all these things. And I think the third piece is keeping it extremely, keeping the model contextual, but also light at the same time. What I mean by that is, because we have women from the same communities and we have a framework which helps us sort of say what is it that these women are going to be doing in these communities, it's easily scalable, right? So we also have partners across. We've got a partner in Pune, we've got a partner in Nepal who also take our model and they sort of work with it in various smaller pockets. So that's another way we think we are sort of solving this that we could solve this at a much larger scale.
Okay, again, a bureaucratic question. What's your plan for the next 5 years? And, what is the relevance of, doing work on maternal and child malnutrition now, keeping, the entire atmosphere of COVID-19 in mind as well?
Yeah. And I think, Vineet, you must be tired of hearing this, but really, like, there is this work is just so important at this point in time. 40%, like I said, of Indian children are undernourished. And this is NFHS data, the recent one. This translates to about 90 lakh children being undernourished year on year, being susceptible to malnutrition. Imagine 70% of that is preventable, right? Because India has made tremendous progress in terms of food security. In the next 5 years, this number will be 4.5 crore children who will be undernourished. And this is because women from these communities do not have agency, do not have choice, right? They do not have the right kind of information and support to know what is it that they should be doing in the first 1,000 days. This is why we need to work on this problem right now. Families from low-income communities, mothers from low-income communities should have agency, which will then solve the problem of malnutrition.
Very well said. Very well said, Shruti. Appreciate the candor that you have displayed and the specifics that you have also gotten into. I know Akshay and Madhu have also been waiting for a long time. Madhu, I'm going to come to you now. Let's talk about Meta's vision now behind the CSR initiative, which is called Pragati. Elaborate on that in context to what you have heard from our previous two panelists.
I will continue to stress on the fact that for us, the main vision is to create communities. And what I, see in Shruti's work, in Agneta's work, is also about creating these communities of women who can, one, sort of build on each other's strength, on each other's learnings, provide role modelship to each other, or imitability if it is about something that they are doing with their ecosystems. But most importantly for us, like I said, is the fact that these are ecosystem strengthening things where communities are collaborating with each other and growing. We are very, very committed to making sure that the way the platforms that we are, which sit under us, whether it be Instagram, WhatsApp, or Meta, are used for information sharing, for entertainment, for education, for collaboration, for economic growth. And we are seeing that a lot of work, whether it be mothers talking to each other, sharing conversations or voice messages or videos over WhatsApp, or it could be cross-learning between young people. A lot of it is happening on platform. So there is one part of it. That is the part of how both, the women here who are so inspirational, their work relates to creating communities. And for us, it is for strengthening those communities with a layer of this, digital enablement. Secondly, very importantly, is the fact of safety. I think that whether it is trying to bring the best to your family or your child, whether it is stepping out to try and make use of the education system, or it is about operating on platforms, social media platforms, we are very committed to ensuring that people feel safe, women feel safe. And we felt that a part of the vulnerable population tends to be women. And when we do work with organizations which are either women led or have large amount of women in their ecosystem, one other area where we try and make our resources available is to ensure that they know how to keep themselves safe as they interact either one-on-one, one-to-many, or within communities on our platform. So there are a number of safety tools, initiatives, resources that we make available widely to other users as well, but also to all our partners, and make sure they're able to leverage them well. Coming back to when you say CSR, like I said, the idea was to stay within where we are able to provide a world of a difference. And in enabling economic activity, especially post-pandemic. I mean, all of us know that women-led businesses or women-led initiatives are the hardest hit during the pandemic. They had to look at dual responsibilities, and there were also dual challenges that came with working in these two ecosystems. So the idea was that if we support these ecosystems, especially where either economic activity or job creation or adding to the national economy is being sort of created, or whether it's families which are strengthening their young to be strong enough to be able to compete equitably in the world, it is very important to support organizations that are holding fort and are experts in this area. Our mandate has always been to support women-led enterprises that are impacting similar ecosystems. And we decided to stay with the program through 2021, 22, because we want to consistently keep supporting these ecosystems and strengthening them. In 2020, 2021, we had sort of incubated 2 organizations and accelerated 2 others. Here again, those were organizations that went on to do phenomenal work. They learned from some of our expertise. We learned from their ecosystems, and we were able to cross-leverage each other's strengths, the strength that we bring as a platform for them as well. This year, we've graduated to supporting 6 different organizations, of whom, Esther and FMCH are 2. So our focus remains that, and enablement, creating communities, keeping them safe, and providing what we can in terms of resources to keep this movement going is where Meta is coming from in this particular initiative.
Very well. Nicely articulated. Thank you for that. Akshay, on to you now. And sorry to keep you waiting. Akshay, let's grab the bull by the horns. Why did the nudge choose to work with the women entrepreneurs? Let's get an answer from you on that.
Sure. Thanks actually for that. It's a question I face fairly often. Typically the narrative that goes around is that we want more women, and this starts from hiring and then goes on to entrepreneurship. So I'll answer it for both. We want more women, but we don't want to drop the bar. That's the usual narrative. So I'm going to use a couple of data points on this. One is there was a study done at about 15,500 applications over 16 years, which came in for the Hubble Space Telescope. Okay, so very high-tech area. Logically, again, the common narrative is science is not for women, math is not for women, and so on and so forth. And female applicant success rate was about 19%, though 23% of the applications came from women. So very clearly, it indicated that the common narrative was correct. What people did, however, who took a look at this, is in 2018, first, Hubble decided to cut out the first names from applications, which meant it became more difficult to identify which were women and which were men. Secondly, later, however, they actually went out and removed all personal identifying information, which then meant that, and told evaluators that they could not discuss characteristics of the scientists, which meant gender. Once this was done, now first, men were outperforming women by 5% over 15 years. And the moment the first names were dropped, the number dropped to less than 3% outperformance. The moment you removed all identifying characteristics, completely anonymized the process, women started outperforming men by 1%. So this entire narrative that we actually need to drop the bar, even in areas like high tech, is clearly wrong. Now that's on hiring itself. If we just look at women entrepreneurship, which is the area that we're supporting these organizations on, BCG has done a study that showed that women-founded businesses deliver more than twice the ROI over 5 years than male-founded businesses. So very clearly, women entrepreneurs do better on returns to investors. Despite that, less than 2.5% of VC investment across the world in 2020 actually went to women founders.
Wow.
So, why does it happen? One would assume, all right, maybe they're bad at pitching, right? But that's not true. So there was a study that was done on this, looking at women founders and male founders presenting in one of the biggest startup competitions for VC money in the world. And what came out was that there are two sorts of questions that can be asked by investors. There are prevention questions, which are to ask how an entrepreneur will prevent everything from going south. And then there are promotion questions, which focus on how successful the venture will be. So, easily put, prevention questions are risk questions, and promotion questions are reward questions. Now, the fun was women and men, entrepreneurs while pitching, use same degrees of risk and reward language in their pitches. But 2/3 of the questions asked to male founders were promotion questions, and 2/3 asked to female founders were actually prevention questions. So what we're doing here is just taking the biases away. We're actually leveling the playing field. We're not giving someone an opportunity over and above what is deserved. We're just leveling the playing field and getting them to come in and compete. It's on merit.
Right. So working on an even keel is what you are talking about. Also, Akshay, talk about how specifically this program is trying to help these entrepreneurs.
Sure. So, if you look globally at any incubator, accelerator, for-profit, non-profit, doesn't matter. Everything that they do can be split up into three main buckets. The first bucket is funding. As you said, when you started out, we give up to 50 lakhs of funding, depending on organizational stage in terms of maturity. The second bucket is capacitation. This is where we actually bring in a lot of differential, where we've got the CSI partners that you spoke about. They've basically built billion-dollar businesses, some multi-billion-dollar businesses, usually in the for-profit space, some in the non-profit space. And they are giving a lot of time to thought partner with these entrepreneurs that we're bringing on for Pragati and helping them solve for scale, right? In a country of 1.6 billion people, if you're not solving for 1 million over time, it's a great intervention, but we need to solve at scale. Otherwise, it doesn't really work. We're not going to be able to solve these problems in our lifetime otherwise. So that's the rationale. That's the second portion. These people give time on a fortnightly basis, weekly basis sometimes to thought partner with these entrepreneurs, help them get through the scale-related barriers. And the last piece is connects. That's the only place that we differ from a for-profit incubator accelerator, because while there are a lot of connects that can be made on that side, in the case of nonprofits, given that it's philanthropic capital that they need to keep raising year after year after year, therefore, the connects that are made in this case are usually to donors, funders, who basically then help them grow further from while they're in the program, as well as after they have gone from the program.
Akshay, also talk about some of the successes that you have had in this program, and how would you categorize these successes? Is that the ultimate goal?
Sure. So That's a more difficult question to answer, typically, because true success in our world is finally impact. Okay, impact itself is very difficult to define because typically the way I've broken it up myself for myself mentally is lives touched, lives influenced, and lives changed. uh, First up, we try to stick with the second and the third. We try not to get to the first because that's a very shallow way of doing it. So the models themselves are chosen like that, and the orgs that make it in are focused on changing lives or at least influencing them in a significant manner. Um, but impact is measured over time. It takes a while to come through. So the first measure of success is basically what happens in terms of other funders funding. As I said, it's philanthropic capital, right? So sustainability is to be measured in terms of sustainability of behavior change, not sustainability of profits, because profits don't happen in this business. So the first measure of success is what is the multiplier that these organizations are able to create on the money we give them. And for us, we basically look at a minimum. At this moment, multipliers range for Pragati range between 10 to 15 times. The money that is given to them is the money that they go out and raise in the next year. And that basically tells us that the stories that are being incubated and accelerated at Pragati are seeing other funder interest also, and other people are buying into what we bought into, and therefore ensuring that these orgs will continue to grow. So that's first. And then, of course, at a later stage, in another couple of years, we will put together impact studies to look at exactly how many people they went out impacted and break it up into the three that I was talking about generally, and look at how deep the impact was.
Right. Akshay, before I take concluding thoughts from the rest of our panelists, one last question for you. Adoption of technology is also a challenge these days. Is that something that you have also focused on? And if yes, what are some of the initiatives you feel that should be taken to make sure that technology, 5G is around the corner, that technology, is an integral part of everyone's life, the even keel that you spoke of?
So, see, technology, first up, in non-profits, and then secondly, in terms of, well, I call them customers. I dislike saying beneficiaries. I think if we think of them as customers, then the likelihood is that we will deliver a product or a service which is at the same level as in the for-profit sector. That said, first up, for non-profits, I think technology is simply the easiest way to amplify impact at the front end, easiest way to create efficiencies at the back end. So we do encourage significantly, a bunch of the money that Meta is spending on the program, which is going to the organizations as grants. We encourage them to spend it on technology, because technology is something that most donors don't pay for. Philanthropic capital is very focused on paying for work on the ground, not work that enables your efficiency, whereas technology creates great efficiency. So that's one of the key ways that we seek to drive it through the program, in terms of ensuring that there is greater IT adoption, greater efficiency created. The second is towards the customers themselves, right? In this case, we encourage entrepreneurs to think about what are the ways that they can reach them. So as an example, online is limited sometimes because of the synchronicity, right? Especially women don't have access to a certain set of devices. There might be a device in the house, but the younger brother will get access to it to play games, as versus the older sister getting access for her classes. So can we go asynchronous, right? Can we put that content offline also, so that no matter when it is received, they can actually access it and take advantage of it? So, and these are all design principles, right? If you design your product to ensure that technology is going to come, is going to be useful to you, it is. But if you designed it only so that it can work at a particular time when you are trying to give it, then it won't. So thinking differentially about technology is what we encourage people to do to ensure that the customers get the most benefit out of it too.
All right, we've almost reached the end of our wonderful conversation with our wonderful panelists. We're going to take concluding thoughts, starting with Agneta. Agneta, it's a milestone to be where you are today. But what more milestones are you looking to achieve? Now things are opening up. The world is coming back to normal. Specifically, India is coming back to normal after a couple of years of havoc and hell. What kind of momentum are you looking to achieve, and then accelerate and give to the people who have benefited by your thinking and your programs?
Yes. So as kind of India is coming back to normal, one thing that we are also bringing into this new normal is that now people have access to smartphones, and colleges are now even just realizing the advantage of saying, okay, hey, we have some strike going on, you can hop on a class. So that is really, really exciting for us, like how education is delivered, both, all the way from elementary school. My mom's a kindergarten teacher, and she's doing a lot of online classes, even though schools have opened up. So I think the way we look at education, we deliver education, and the way we reach our audience is going to look very different. And we're very excited. We're here for it. Esther is here for it. And what we also know is that now, like I was saying earlier, that, we're having women graduate college in the highest rates that it has ever been before. But we're not seeing them enter the workforce yet. We're still falling behind. In fact, there's a decrease of women entering the workforce with COVID. So even as India is kind of going back to normal, as the economy and workspaces explore hybrid opportunities where they give people flexibility to say you can work from home. So then this girl who's like coming from some village where the parents are like, we'd prefer for you to not move to a town, she can have a laptop. And as long as she has good Wi-Fi or good data, she's going to be able to dial in, take a job that you can from anywhere, and access economic opportunity. So we would love to just sort of be there upfront with kind of helping these women navigate the transition. It's a huge shock for them, from no one ever going to work in their family to, suddenly having, for them to start becoming a community of women, of role models, and enabling the next generation as well to say, hey, women can join the workforce and we're here to be a part of it. And yeah, I think with that being said, that's like the thing that we're doing right now. That's where we're driving momentum. But what we do see is very strong evidence, and there's lots of papers about this, and statistically it's been proven that when a woman has power with their finances, when a woman starts earning, there's not only just impact on health, with not just for herself, but even her family, including choices she makes with nutrition, with how she's providing for healthcare for the family, but also there's other spillover effects like family planning, her children choosing to get her children educated, choosing for them to go to college, her being able to negotiate her marriage age, to say, look, I have a career now, so I can negotiate when I get married, I can negotiate it on my terms. And also, most importantly, I think it's just being able to say, how can we escape the cycle of poverty, especially for people who are coming from backgrounds where, economies are shifting and maybe what they've done for generations is not relevant anymore, being able to sort of be a pioneer in shifting the narrative for the family and her community.
Okay. Shruti, quickly talk about the shift that you're bracing for.
Yeah. So, Vineet, I think just with the pandemic sort of easing out, and we don't know where this is headed, but I think the one thing that I am thinking about is how it's so important to solve this problem of gender inequity at this point at various levels, right? But specifically, I'll speak from the work that I do. I think it's important for us to understand that that women from low-income communities undergo a lot of trauma. Like time poverty is a real thing. They need to have the ecosystem of support that is required to make them full versions of themselves, give them choice and agency. I don't think we can do this alone. I don't think it's going to be one FMCH that's going to solve this problem, right? We need many more FMCHs. We need more donors to come into this space, really know that this is worth putting their money into, because if we want to see a tomorrow which is fairer for everybody, we really need to put in a lot more resources in today. And I think that's going to be my call to action to everybody, right? Like in whatever way it is that you feel called to do, I think that's what we all need to do. One or two of us are not going to solve this alone. All of us need to come together. We need to build those communities to make sure we make this a non-issue.
Absolutely. And Madhu, concluding thoughts from you. You also spoke about how important and imperative communities are. And integration of all these efforts is only going to help, the way we want things to turn out in the future.
No, absolutely. As always, I will continue to say that we will be a front foot first enablers. And I hear the wonderful vision that is coming forth from both Agneta and Shruti. And all I can say is that, please go ahead and, actualize these wonderful sort of, wonderful sort of thoughts you have for taking forward this year and enablement to multiple communities. And as always, Meta is right there to support you.
All right, Akshay, concluding thoughts from you, and then we wrap up.
No, just privileged to actually walk a small part of the journeys of these exceptional founders with them. That's about it. Again, as Madhu said, continue to look forward to basically working with them as they solve for some of India's wicked problems.
Right, absolutely. And it's been an empowering and a wonderful conversation. As the word says, it's a nudge in the right direction. It's a nudge towards Pragati as well. And that's exactly what we also managed to achieve in this short, but this very constructive and futuristic conversation. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this very engaging dialogue, if I can call it. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.